welcome to Ben's Den, everybody. And we have finally arrived. We are in the postseason. It's official. 10 weeks in the books. A lot of hard work, a lot of practices, some long tournaments, some early morning bus rides, which we'll hear from these coaches, especially. There's some long bus rides, and it's been a heck of a grind this year. And we are at the time now where we're at the Division State Championship rounds, and we're going to start with Division Three this season. And I'm very excited. I have some great coaches in, some familiar faces, and more importantly, some encyclopedia of knowledge of some of the kids that are going to be getting down after it this Saturday in not London, in Conval this year. So Billy, you get the day off from a hosting point of view. But I just wanted to set the table and say, let's get it going, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you all. Let me just do a quick introduction for those out there that don't know you guys. So we have Coach Billy Chavanelle. He is the head coach over there in Bow. And year 3 now, Billy?
Couldn't find my mute button. Yeah, year 3.
Year 3. And so getting the wind beneath his wings and keeps climbing up each year. I also have Coach Bob Riddenger here. He's a longtime coach over there at Pelham, and he's been on the Den before, so thanks for being here, Coach. And we also have Coach Austin from Plymouth, longtime right-hand man of Coach Cleary. Some would say the capo, if you will, or the consigliere. You were a capo a long time ago. But Coach Austin, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time as always.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
All right, so in the interest of keeping things moving quickly, and because I'm very excited, let's hop right in, and we're going to go right into shark-infested waters at 106 pounds. Never mind the team races that are going on. We'll get into that later, but this one, it starts it right out, right? So 1 seed, Jaron Coulon out of Bow. Billy, you might know something about him. A very tough and scrappy Will Healy from Lebanon, who I am sure is looking to improve his seed by 1 for sure. And then you got Mason Morrison from Plymouth is your 3 seed, and they do the top 4 in D3. So your 4 seed is Lucas Durfee out of Winnisquam. And I got to tell you, this one, there's going to be some fur flying. I think it's seeded pretty accurately, but Coach Chavanelle, your wrestlers at the top of the heap here to start with. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's seeded pretty accurately. You have Jaron returning state champ at 106 last year with the win over Healy in the state finals last year as well. Unfortunately, they did not see each other head-to-head this year. Healy was out with an injury when we went up to Lebanon this past dual season. So, but I mean, if you've seen Will Healy wrestle at all, you know that he's a tough, scrappy kid. And I think he's beaten everybody else in the 106 bracket. So, but that's not to say that Morrison from Plymouth isn't as tough, or even Durfee from Winnisquam is also tough as well. I'm excited to see the kids who aren't even seated on this bracket as well. I think there's a lot of sleepers on there as well that could have vied for a seed or whatnot. But overall, I mean, I think we nailed this one season wise. Usually 106, you might have a couple dominant kids. I think around here you have killers left and right. So I'm excited to see how it works out. Obviously, with my guy being at the top, I'll be heavily invested with Jaron's day throughout the day, but I'm also going to be, watching those quarters and semifinals matches up top along with the contests down below to see how it shakes out. So, 106 has been that weight class I'm keeping an eye on, even though I, tend to go for the heavier weights.
Yeah. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. He was dealing with a little bit of an injury towards the latter half of the season. I'm assuming, like the rest of the wrestlers, he's still dinged up, but he is a go, right?
Yeah, he's 100% a go. He had a shoulder injury. I mean, I don't think it's a secret. I'm spilling any beans. Shoulder injury from Lowell, so he's been dealing with since December. I don't want to call it load management because that's a basketball term and that's gross. But in general, we've been kind of keeping an eye on him. Time to make weight, time not to make weight, time to take off, time not to take off. So, I think my staff and I have done a solid job getting him to 100% or as close to it. nobody's 100% around this time, and anybody who tells you that they are, I think they're lying, which is, that's good. But I think he's on his own vision quest to repeat this year and have a better showing this year at MOCs. Obviously, not looking past D3s because, again, you look at 106 all the way through, it's killers. So it's not going to be an easy day for him, nor for anybody else. But I think Jaren's ready to go.
Excellent. And Coach Austin, obviously, you and Billy have been locking horns for a couple of years now in D3 with the dual meets. You see each other at the tournaments and stuff. And no head to head, as Billy said. So Morrison, he's had a pretty good year, as I understand it. Yes.
Yeah. So he's a freshman. Came out strong from middle school. His first match of the season was actually against Will Healy down at the Conval Early Bird, and that didn't go well at all.
Welcome to wrestling.
Welcome to senior at 106. But they faced off 2 other times during the season. It's been pretty tight. Mason's been working hard, and he's ready to go. Down at Ball, when we had the duel, Jaren wrestled up at 113, so that match didn't happen. But I'm looking forward to this weight. 106 is always fun, and no matter where you're at, the lightweights are always scrappy, and it's fun to watch.
For sure. And Coach Riddenger, McKenna is it Comtois or Comtos?
Comtois.
Comtois. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. She's a freshman, yes?
Yes, she is.
How's her season gone thus far?
It's a struggle. Freshman, a very lightweight freshman coming in. Some of these guys are tipping the scales right now, 106 and a half, 107, right at 108 sometimes. So she's always given up at least 10 pounds, it seems. But it's trial by fire, and the freshmen know coming in that they could be going up against a senior, a junior, sophomore. It doesn't matter. They're going to have to put it out on the mat and see what they can do. But we're hoping she can make a little bit of noise anyhow. Anytime that you can gather some points here and there is good. When she's been wrestling, she's got a lot of forfeits, unfortunately. But when she's out there, she scrambles a lot. So I'm looking forward to see what she can do.
Yeah, hey, welcome to the dance kind of thing, right? As a freshman, you're lucky to be here. All right, well, I got to say, I'm excited for 106 at D3 for, again, those top 4 are very exciting. And, that prospect of, Healy, Morrison in the semis, that excites me. So should be an excellent day at 106. All right, so let's jump to 113. And in my mind, again, seated right here, but Sean Crean from John Stark, I think he's just been on fire this year. I think he's the rightful number 1 here. And, Brody Phillips out of Raymond, he actually, he's one of those kids. He messaged me on Instagram, was like, I think he won a tournament. He was like, hey, you're going to mention me on Ben's Den now? And I made sure that I did. And I love that. I love when a kid reaches out after a big milestone in his life that maybe I missed, never on purpose, I promise you, but there's only 24 hours in the day. But Phillips is tough. Oliver Alcoin from Conval, another scrappy contender there. Casey Petronero, that one always likes to tongue tie me while I'm doing my weekly wrap-ups. There's some good names in here. So I guess Sean Crean, Coach Riddenger, I'm sure you've come across John Stark a few times this season. Have you had the opportunity to see Sean?
Yeah, they come to our tournament, and we see him in the dual meet, obviously. But unfortunately, I don't have a 13 this year, and I believe he was in the finals this year at our tournament. I'd have to look back just to verify that, but I'm impressed with him. He's a nonstop go-getter, scrappy. He finds ways to make things work for himself.
Yeah, I assume, Coach Austin, that you've probably seen Casey lock horns with Sean a couple times this season. Is that accurate?
I don't believe they've actually faced off against each other. Casey was a backup for us for half the season, and then our 113 pounder we had, he's no longer with the team, but Casey, she's stepped up. She's a freshman. She's got a judo background, so she has some grappling in her, in her background. But we're looking for her to, catch a few kids and see what she can do. She works hard. Brody Phillips is a scrapper. You never know when he's going to hit a lat drop or flying headlock or something. That kid seems to always pull something crazy out. I think after those top three, any one of those other kids could maybe place fourth. So it'll be a battle down there.
Yeah, it's for me it's interesting here in that Plymouth and both on the non-seeded side, right? But like you said, you grab a couple of wins there; those team points really matter. And Stark, they got some studs out there. I don't know how deep they're going to be here, but the points that Sean's going to put on the board, they're going to matter. So I think 13 is going to be a good example. Any fear in your eyes there, Coach Chavanelle, for one Crean? Anybody going to upset them?
Yeah, I mean, so going back, I do want to highlight, Colin, like he's stepping up, Colin Broussard there. He is stepping up big for our team right now. He's about, I would say, 94, 97 on a good day. He lost his rest left to cool on. But he decided he wanted to go 113 just for the team. So I do want to give him, credit for that. Jaron wrestled the Raymond kid at the duel we had early in the year. And it was a tough match. Jaron was able to pull it out. A couple months later, we saw John Stark in a duel, and Crean teched Jaron and, took him to school pretty well. So, I've been really impressed with Crean across the board. I've talked to Coach Fiedner about how much I think of Crean. So I'm excited to see Brody and Crean, if they get to the finals, I think it's going to be fireworks, a lot of action. So, again, those smaller guys, they kind of go for it. And those are two, Energizer bunnies who just nonstop action.
For sure. Yeah, I think, Coach Austin coined the best phrase ever. I use it consistently, but two squirrels in a sock, right? And that's 113, baby.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to 120, which sees a Plymouth stud, Robert Phipps, as the number one seed there, followed by 2 seed Sam Baker out of Campbell, which we don't see too many high seeds coming out of Campbell these days, so it's good to see one. And then you got Lance Labens out of the White Mountains, the 3 seed, and Aiden Soufair out of Winnisquam as your 4 seed. And so, Coach Austin, I'll let you lead it off since you got the number one here.
Yeah, Phipps is he's a senior now for us. He's one of the hardest workers we got in the room. He's constantly asking if he's working hard enough, and the answer is always yes, he is. He's had a great year. He hasn't seen Baker this season. Does have a win over Labens. Those White Mountain boys they're wrestling tough this year. Coach up there has got him going good. So I think Phipps. He's looking to win this tournament for the first time. He's put in a lot of work. Just comes up a little bit short each of the past couple of years, but he's focused and ready to go.
And you say a senior?
Senior, yeah.
Well, that's a heck of a story. I like that right there. A kid that's sometimes I think some of these kids coming up underneath, they get it wrong, man. They see some of these Lance Bordelos and some of these superstars, and they think that that's the way it's supposed to be. And I think we all know as people that have been around the sport long enough, yeah, there's a couple of those in the crowd sometimes, 1, maybe 2. But the rest of us, we got to grind for a couple of years and go through all the disappointments and the climbing of the podium in high school to reach the top. And I love a story like that where, you got that 4th-year kid trying to I got one shot here. And so good luck to Mr. Phipps. I think that's great. Sam Baker, Billy, you know anything about Sam?
Yeah, we saw him in a dual meet. My guy Flaherty. He's wrestled tough this year, but Baker kind of came out of nowhere. So when they were warming up, he was wearing a Smitty's Wrestling Barn sweatshirt, and I was like, okay, so he's clearly been around a little bit. And he goes out there, and you're like, oh, he definitely has been around for a little bit. Tough, scrappy kid. I don't know what he does well because he does everything at a pretty high and intense level. I'm interested to see what he looks like against Labens from White Mountains. I concur with Coach Austin said about those White Mountains kids just wrestling tough. So if that's the semis match there, I think that's going to be fireworks. And then more importantly, like if Phipps gets to that finals against that 2 or 3 seed, I'm interested to see who comes out. I think this is Phipps to lose at this point. I think nothing but the world of Phipps. He's a tough kid, but Baker, I'm not going to sleep on Baker, and I think he's rightfully the 2 there. But Laban's right behind him. That was definitely the right choice.
Right. So is it Rick Corrigan? Is that his name from White Mountains? Is my list correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. I concur with you as well. Mr. Corrigan has done a really good job up there this year. And, I say this year, but it's, you got to put the time in before it shows up. And the White Mountains, they do look very good this year. And he's I mentioned it on one of my episodes earlier. Like I was driving up there for a dual meet, and I'm thinking to myself, I would just love to be going snowboarding right now. This would be great. And if I live 20 minutes from Cannon Mountain, hey, go eat a crossface, 6 days a week, or cruise down the mountain with some earbuds in and have a hot cocoa. So the numbers he's got and the quality of kids, well done. Coach Riddenger, talk to me about Matthew Raymond. He's the 5 seed at 120.
Yeah, Matt. He started out a little bit slow. He's got a lot of action to him. He's got good movement. He's got good moves. Sometimes it's a confidence thing with him. And sophomore, again, last year thrown into the fire right away. But we've been working with him on a few things here and there. He's had some close matches with some of these guys on there. So. We're looking forward to see what he can do. I mean, 5 seed, you're on the top side. You're going to be running into haymakers all day long up there, and it's going to be a matter of just going out and battling, each time. And as I tell these guys, I've been to too many tournaments where you see a very high seed kid gets knocked off somewhere. Maybe their foot gets caught on the mat whenever they're trying to do a move or trying to sprawl, and they just get caught. And case in point, Mike Peruccio, when he wrestled for me, he could have been a 4-time state champ. And one of the Cole boys, he was up 9-5 on him in the 3rd period, and he did a lazy stand-up, put his head to his knee, got cradled, and got decked. Lost the state championship.
No.
So, crazy things happen. And we're just looking for Matt to go out and, do his best, work on the things that we've been working on. And, hopefully, he'll find some success on Saturday.
Excellent. And I love the phrase, you're going to run into some haymakers all day, because that's exactly right. And speaking of haymakers, you go to 126 and you got a haymaking machine. And that's Ryan Cormier out of Winnisquam. He's your 1 seed. I love watching that kid wrestle. He is pissed off at something. I just haven't figured out what it is yet. But whatever it is, boy, he saves it all up. And when he gets on the mat, he is tough. And so he's your 1 seed. And then right behind him is another absolute stud, Lincoln Jablonski from John Stark. Another kid. It's like Feudner's got a bunch of like a Tigger factory. Winnie the Pooh, that Tigger can just jump around on his tail. Jablonski is just all over the place, so light on his feet, and just springs into action. And so him as the 2 seed, and Coach Riddenger, you got the queen down here at the 3 seed, Mrs. Donovan, right? Liz is a senior this year. What a storied career she has. First female wrestler to win 100 matches in the co-ed division. So congratulations to you and to her on that. Nobody does it alone. So in her senior year, you've had her a long time now, not just in the high school, but, you kept your eye on her. Dad's been in your ear for a long time, making sure that the path was carved for her. So what's the senior year been like, knowing that it's coming to an end and, big goals still?
Yeah, I mean, she is just a completely different person this year. I mean, she was my senior captain, and the reason why I put her as my solo senior captain besides the other 4 seniors I have on the team. And she's the one senior that has been with me for 4 years. So she's gone through the grind. She's done everything. She knows what's to be expected of her. And we've moved her around some in the lineup because we had a week 132, and so I bumped her a few times. We went to Plymouth, and I bumped her up, and she got beat up there. But you know what? It's unless we knew somebody was going to be dropping, we knew it wasn't going to affect her that much. But her losses, it just drives her. She dwells on them a little bit, maybe a little bit too much, but she comes out firing, and she's looking forward to this. I mean, she lost to Jablonski at our tournament in the finals, and then she turned around a week later and beat him, 11-3 or something like that. So, she's ready, and I know Cormier is not going to be, anything to sneeze at here. I mean, the kid's legit, and we're hoping to see that come down to the finals. And we're hoping that we come out on top with that four-time state champion, but, it's going to be on her. And we've talked about some of the things that she's going to need to do and focus on. And, hopefully that's the way she comes at it.
Yeah. Hey, there's no easy roads, right? Even for the good kids, there's challenges along the way. Coach Chavanelle, you got Josh Roos. He's the 4 seed for Bo. And, again, that top 3 is pretty scary.
Yeah, Josh is a second-year sophomore, came to us last year and kind of became a pretty fast riser in our varsity lineup. He went in unseeded, went 2-2, made it to the conference semis, and put in a solid off season. So I think he's deserving of that 4 seed. The only issue is he's ran into hammers. He had an early season loss to Liz at 32 at our duel. He got caught against Jablonski in our duel with John Stark, and he's wrestled Ryan a couple times here, just going down the stretch, and he's had those tough losses, but like the kid doesn't stop. He takes on the chin, he takes a loss well, but he comes back in the room like ready to work. Very coachable. He doesn't say a whole lot. He kind of like has like 1,000-yard stare at all times, so I can never really tell if he's listening. But then he goes out there and executes what we talked about. So I've been very impressed with his development here in this next year, and the fact that he's only a sophomore and has already gone through the experience with like the field that's in here with Cormier and Liz, being seniors, and Jablonski. I know is going to be here for a while, but it's going to be good experience for him moving on the road. I will say, I feel like I've seen this movie before where Donovan is, the 3 or 2 seed, and she comes up big. So I'm, I mean this with all due respect too. Like I expect her to be like in that finals with Cormier. Like I think she's great at everything. Like it's been fun watching her wrestle, and I truly do think like it's gonna be a good match with Jablonski. Yeah, again, I have nothing but praise for Donovan and her work ethic and the way she does, and she handles her business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, wrestling aside, she's just been a trailblazer for the girls behind her, and you saw it with the growth just on the Pelham team and female participation. That doesn't happen on accident. And when you got somebody like Liz kind of leading the way, you got a lot of those girls that kind of fell in and joined the heap there. And success breeds success. And Liz, while having some disappointments along the way, she's had an amazing amount of successes, and I agree that this is going to be an amazing weekend in that weight class. And so, good luck to everybody in the 126. We'll shuffle along to 132, where you ever notice there's sometimes a pattern. You look at one weight class and you're like, oh, there's a hammer. And then you go to the next weight class and there's another hammer from the same team. And that happens a lot because those kids they're always banging and locking horns in the practice room. And that's the case here at 132, where you got a very tough Amon Gauthier from Winnisquam, same as Cormier. One of my faves comes out of Newport, Blake Ploss. He's your 2 seed. Reminds me a little bit, I always say it, a little bit of that Yanni D, smooth, very bendy. And then out of White Mountains, again, doing a great job out of there. Results showing in the seeding. You got Logan Sampson at number 3. And then I'll call him the wild card, and I'll explain why. But Hunter Dvorak from Mascoma Valley, he's 4. And then Colin Mayo out of Conval is number 5. And so Gauthier, never mind his hair game. The length isn't so impressive, but the color game is very impressive. And I know one Rick Ross who's he enjoys the hair. But once you get past the hair, you get a really tough, gritty competitor. Reminds me a bit of Sawyer McCready from Concord in that he's not teching people, but he's in some dirty, filthy matches and he comes out on top. And even if he doesn't, he makes you know he wrestles them. Like I said, Blake's very slick. Not too up on what Logan's about, but if I remember correctly from the dual meet, he's a pretty talented kid. And so looks like, Coach Riddenger, you got the closest name on the list there from Pelham, Brielle Egan. We got Sebastian Sargent, he's a senior there, and then we got Shane Rablis. So start with you, Coach Riddenger. What do you think of the top 3, 4 in the division? And then a little plug for yours.
Yeah, I think the seating committee really got it good. And again, I sung his kids' praises last year, Dvorak. Just a tough, scrappy kid, get that mountain strength up there, the Northland strength like that. So, but Gauthier, I mean, like you said, he does a lot of the dirty work and finds a way to get things to work in his favor. Plus, he's been going at it he's a senior now, right?
No, he's a junior.
Junior. Okay. So we didn't see them this year, but I've seen him in the standings on some of the different tournaments and that, and the kid you can't ever count out. And White Mountain kid, trying to remember if we saw him when we were up at Plymouth in the tri-meet up there. If we did, it probably wasn't a very good outcome, but I'm just really impressed with all those White Mountain kids. They like you said, they're putting in the work. They're buying into what the coaches got them doing, and I think any of those kids in any of those weight classes, you're going to have to keep an eye out for those guys.
Agreed. Now, Coach Austin, I want to throw it to you for a second because I mentioned Hunter Dvorak from Mascoma Valley, and I know that you know those boys up there very well. So Hunter is one of those kids. I think he has the potential to absolutely make it to the top of the podium. His biggest challenge has always been keeping his head in the game when there's some tough matches. And I know you've been around Mascoma a bunch. I know you've been around Winniscombe. I know you know Blake Ploss. Tell me what you're seeing here at 132 pounds.
Yeah, Hunter's a strong kid. He's just like all those Mascoma boys. They're rugged. They come out and they're a little bit stiff, but they're not afraid to smash you and grind out matches. I expect him to give Gauthier a little bit of a run. I feel like Gauthier and Ploss are a little bit separated from this field a little bit. Gauthier real aggressive, and Ploss is kind of smooth, like you mentioned. Early in the season at Conval, Gauthier had a win over Ploss down there. But I just want to mention my guy, Sebastian Sargent, Seabass, as everybody knows him as. Senior, started wrestling as a freshman. Just has worked so hard, gotten better every year. Took 4th in the D3s last year. Had a great tournament. He's putting in the work again. He's kind of in the same boat he was last year going in. So we're hoping that, he can pull something like that out again. It's weights like this, that are going to kind of win this tournament, I feel like, when, you don't have, the Plymouth guy, the Bow guy, Pelham kid. They're not necessarily seeded, but they're tough enough to get in there and score some points.
Agreed. And if I may, Sebastian Sargent, like if you could find me a nicer kid, I'll sell you a bridge. I mean, I'm telling you, it just like you said, you taking the hardest road into wrestling. Starting as a freshman in high school, right? You're wrestling kids have been wrestling 4 or 5 years sometimes, and you're trying to figure out how to just get in a stance, and they're ripping you away. It's a tough path, right? And especially in a program like Plymouth, where you just can't be decent and rise to the top. You got to really grind it out. And that kid was always smiling, win, lose, or draw. The sportsmanship on him was amazing. I'd see him at the BGS Brawls, just happy to be there, very grateful, putting in the work every year, getting better. And, listen, he's not the one seed, and that's okay. He can make some noise in that bracket, but this sport is exactly for kids like him. Because look, there's one top of the podium spot, but man, I've watched that young man just mature and grow. And he's like, you take all those things and fast forward 10 years, and what kind of human being do you got? Like
Yeah,
that,
he's
that's a
he's been
win.
great. We got his little brother Gabe. He's in at 126.
Yep.
He's a freshman. His parents are there doing everything they can to help. It's just been great.
Yeah, it's good. I'm gonna miss him, but I'm sure if I'm not mistaken, he's not going very far. He's going to Plymouth State, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's heading down there in the fall.
I love it. You know what? He'd look great, really good in some stripes with a whistle. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
All
We'll
right,
work on him.
we're moving along. All right, so 138. We got number one seed from Winnisquam, Dylan Griffin. So three in a row. How about that? Number two, Luis Torres from Conval. Number three is Jacob Coulon from Bow. Four will be Blake Sear, White Mountains. And a lone wolf here in Casey Horn from Trinity. And I had a chance to see Casey through the year. Good kid. Just love seeing the Trinity singlet. It's amazing. And then you got Cody Sawyer out of Plymouth to round out the top six for the seeded. So obviously, Winnisquam's got a couple of hammers in a row, 1, 2, 3, right there, ending at 138. Um, you know, the second Coulon, if you will, right? The older brother, Jacob. He's your three seed. Tell me what the season has looked like for Mr. Coulon and what you're expecting for this Saturday.
Well, before if I may, before that, I do want to give Dylan Griffin his flowers real quick. That young man has gone through a lot, like in his own personal life outside of wrestling. I've had the privilege to know I'm from the Winnisquam area, from that program. So to see Dylan Griffin kind of hit his stride in the sport and have the season he's had, I did want to give him a quick his flowers for that, since Coach Osmer's not on today, and also give Coach Osmer his flowers as well for the program that he has fostered over these last couple of years. So I know he's too cool for us sometimes, to be on this meeting. So he'll love that I said that. But I do want to give both those guys their flowers for that. So getting off that subject, Jay Coulon, I think he's dramatically changed from his sophomore season to his junior season. They're not even the same person. His mindset, the way he preps himself, the way he carries himself, the way he manages his weight, the way he does the right thing constantly. It's night and day. It's great to see, and that's I think that's why we're all in the coaching, right? To see the progression of kids, and sometimes it happens in a year, sometimes it happens in 3 years. Jake's been one of those kind of late bloomer type of kids. I mean, he's only a junior, but his progression this year is great. 138, I think, was one of the harder ones to seed this year, just because, again, it's full of killers. You have Torres from Conval, Griffin from Winnisquam, again, another White Mountains kid just coming out of nowhere. The Trinity kid's tough. Who else we got there? Cody Sawyer, Plymouth. You have killers and studs left and right in this weight class. And I'm not just talking like D3 studs. I'm talking like these kids could potentially do something at all states. So, it's a super tough weight class. I would expect Coulon to move through the bracket. And then those semi-championship rounds or finals round, even Conti finals, are going to be tough. So can't wait to see how it shakes out.
Excellent. Coach Austin, how about for you? Cody Sawyer's your sixth seed there.
Yeah, I mean, Billy pretty much described this weight class perfectly. If I had hair, I would have been pulling it out, trying to seed this weight class. We were all over the map. And I think probably each one of the top 3 or 4, even 5, were in the one spot at some point in the tumble. But Cody's a tough kid. He's a sophomore for us. He's wrestled everywhere from 126, 32, and 38. Settled in at 38 for this tournament. So we'll see how he does there. He's very natural wrestler. He moves well. He's coming along. He's starting to work a little harder, seeing the fruits of his labor in the room. Where kind of in the beginning of the season when he was kind of a backup and not in the lineup, we kind of were getting on him about his not working so hard. But since just after Christmas or so, he started picking it up, and he's had a great run here in the last month or so. So we're looking for him to do some good things.
Excellent. And maybe one of you smart gentlemen can help me understand why, but I'm looking, go to the next weight class at 144. Why do some have 6 seated and why do some have 4?
So each weight's a little different. It goes into the depth of the weight class. We talked at depth about, is there like a stopping point? Like, do we only, do we seed somebody with a losing record, or, there's no real great answer. Like, there's no cutoff point. It's kind of, in the end, it's as you get lower in the brackets, kids beat other kids. They have, good losses, bad losses, good wins, bad wins, and it's just too hard to determine who's better than who once you get too far down in the bracket.
All right. So basically,
so it's not a scientific
retreat.
Right. It's not a scientific method, really, but okay. That's kind of how it is.
All right. So you seed as far as you can go reasonably, and then move on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, then we'll move on too. I was just curious. All right. 144 pounds. Number 1 seed, Brandon Gray out of Newport. Number 2, Nolan Lindstad out of Hopkinton. All right. Hopkinton's on the board. Ever tough, Gage Richard out of Kearsarge is your 3 seed. And the love bug comes screaming in. Beep, beep. Herbie Madden out of Bo. He's your 4 seed. So, this is an interesting bracket, right? Because you look at the top 3 here. They don't come from power teams. Newport, Hopkinton, and Kearsarge are your top 3. So it's good to see some of those, I don't want to say smaller programs. I don't want to say weaker programs. We'll just say one of those lesser accomplished programs. How about that? It's good to see them, right? Newport, Ploss has been a shining star there for a couple of years, but Brandon Gray's been right behind that shine doing the very same thing. Lindstad just, to me, popped out of nowhere this year, and here he is, and I love it. And I've watched Richards for a couple of years, and again, Sawyer McCready-ish, right? Super tough. Win, lose, or draw, you're in a match with him, right? So, Coach Chavanelle, you got the closest on the podium here with the love bug. What do you see going on in 44?
Yeah, Brendan Gray was pretty clear number 1. He's a freshman out of Newport, but as we discussed in the meeting, Spencer Lee was also a freshman at 1.2. So we had to kind of keep that into consideration for that. Record-wise, he's just about beat everybody at this point. It was a tough bracket to seed. There's other guys in this bracket like Nicolosi from Pelham, who him and Herbie somehow always have classic drag out matches. It's 3 Sawyer McCready matches over and over again. I'm gonna pull out the rest of my hair that Bob doesn't have. He might start pulling from his beard as they meet up. So I love that he's gonna start pulling that. So it's a very interesting weight class. Herbie, I think is properly seated at that 4 seed. I'm interested to see what he pulls off. He's been wrestling out of his mind lately and finally putting things together. So anything can happen. And again, this is one of those weight classes that those top 3 kids from those again, not lesser programs, but less accomplished programs. Here's your time to shine, and I really hope they do. It's good. This is why we have 3 divisions, right? So that way these smaller teams can have these kids go out there and prove their worth, and hopefully, and maybe I'm going to get on my soapbox. The ADs of these programs can start supporting them a little bit more based off the noise that they're making. Did I say that out loud?
We all know I love a soapbox, so they're welcomed here at Bensden when done properly. All right, Coach Riddenger. So you got a familiar name, but Nicolosi, sophomore Drew. He's down there in the no seed, but as Coach Chavanelle mentioned, never underestimate him. So where are you at with him?
Yeah, he's one of those kids where earlier in the year he could not hear anything that was being called out to him on the mat. I'm like, let me see your headgear. So we look, and sure enough, the straps are covering over the holes on the. So we got that taken care of. But he's he's a determined kid. He's a strong, scrappy kid. When he decides that he wants to be the man, he goes out and he wrestles with, unabandoned furor. And, we were over at Alvis last weekend, and he was on the verge that, we wrestled Wyndham and we wrestled Alvin, and he wasn't going to get a match. So we started digging around and finding people. And that was his first matches that he'd had in over a week and a half. He had forfeits up to that point. So fortunately, he wrestled really well there. I was happy with the way that he wrestled. He's doing a lot of the things that we've been working on with him, and he's finding success with them. So I'm looking for him. He's one of my dark horses on this team that I expect is going to make a lot of noise, and I think he has the potential to be a very high place there.
All right, I love it. All right, what are we halfway through, right? So that was 144. We're halfway through the review. Off we go to the bigger men now. 115 pounds. Well, Coach Osmer must have been really busy today because he's got another number one seed in Colin Parentow from Winnisquam. Number two, Sage Anktel from Campbell. So your second high seed out of Campbell. Number three, Jackson Rainier from those nice guys out there from Plymouth. And then the other nice guys, Ryan Dolder from Bow. Dolder tough, right? That's your top four. Looking at some of the names underneath that, there's some people under there that could shake some things up. But let me go, Coach Austin. I'll start with you, and then I'll go over to Coach Chavanelle. But what do you guys see here in the 150 pounds?
I mean, I think this is kind of wide open. The top four. Parento comes down a weight, I believe, and Coach Osborne did a good job. His guys were kind of weight wise all over the place, but settled them into. I think he's a pretty smart guy, and settled them into the weight classes where he thinks and the kids think they can score the most points at this tournament based on where they're at. Rainier, our guy, he's a second year wrestler. He's a senior now. He's living the hoop dream his whole life. He loved basketball. Decided as a junior, he wanted to try wrestling. He's a great natural athlete. Took fourth last year in this tournament, and he's looking to improve on that. He and Dolder have had a couple tough matches so far this year. I just wanted to point out Eric Young from White Mountains. He's a tough kid. He's in the mix with the next weight. You'll see his workout partner is the number one seed, but he could make some waves in this weight as well.
All right. Coach Chavanelle, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo what Coach Austin said. It's pretty wide open. I don't think there's a clear number one, but if there is, I think Parento definitely separated himself a little bit there. Sage from Campbell, this is where it kind of gets interesting. So, Dolder had beat him earlier in the year, and then dropped two to Jackson, Rainier of Plymouth. So again, just kind of convolutes the weight class. It'd just be a hell of a lot easier if a Dolder could just win out without any drama. But that's a Dolder problem, I guess I got to work on.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you too, Jared, because I know you still watch these. But yeah, I mean, 150 is kind of all over the place. Another guy who's not seated, but certainly up there is Champagne from John Stark. Again, another Feudner Tigger factory product, and just kind of goes. So, if we were allowed to bet on high school sports, this is one weight class I would stay away from because anything can happen.
All right, fair enough. And no bets are taken here in the den. Well, I'll just leave it at this. I'm not supposed to be pulling for anybody either. But that Jackson Rainier I quit basketball story will test that. So I'll leave it at that. It's good to see them when they leave that sport and come over. All right, 157, as you mentioned. Another tough kid from the White Mountains, Aiden Willie. Is it Willie or Wiley? It's two L's, so I always say Willie.
It's Alden Willie.
All right.
Willie. Yeah.
Alden Willie. Tough kid, this Alden Willie. He's your 1 seed at 157 pounds. I swear this guy's got a part-time job in a cubicle someplace. Grant Wenhart out of Plymouth, he's your 2 seed. He just looks like he already graduated college and that he just drove in his Audi and took off his suit and tie and he wants to wrestle. He's a good one. I like him. Ben Maslanik, baby Ben from Pelham, the last of the Maslanik Mohicans, as they would say. He's your 3 seed. Lewis Anderson out of Raymond is your 4 seed. Jesse Guay, Muscoma Valley, gets the 5. And then Dylan Callahan, Messinic, is your 6 seed. And Coach Riddenger, let's start with you. As I mentioned, it's the last of the Maslanics. Ben is a sophomore this year. A lot of growth, both physically and maturity-wise. So, what are you seeing from Mr. Maslanik in this weekend's events?
Yeah, he has prepped himself out these past couple of weeks. Getting ready to do battle for Saturday. He goes to the gym daily with his dad, or if his dad's traveling, he gets over there himself with a couple of his other teammates early in the morning, and then hits the school. But his work ethic and his training partner really is the next kid up at 165. And these guys, if you tell them to go 50% in the room on a drill, they're going 100. They're going 100 live, and you just can't put the reins on them. I mean, they just want to go. They want to get out there and scrap, and they want to do the things that they love doing. And for him, this is just another step in the road that he wants to take forward. So
Perfect. And Mr. Austin, I crack jokes about Grant, but he's a great kid and a really tough wrestler. And at a 2 seed on the other side of Alden, I'm sure he's got visions of just making his way to the finals. And if I'm not mistaken, did they have a heads up this year?
Yeah. Grant wrestled Alden Willie and Ben Maslanik. They all wrestled each other on the same day in Plymouth, actually. Grant took a loss to Alden and snuck out I think a 1-point win. Coach Riddenger, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, over Maslanik that day. And Alden pulled up win over Ben. But yeah, you're right about Grant. He's a senior now. He's a captain of ours, hard worker. He just was joking the other day. Well, kind of joking. He lost the run. We go on a run on Mondays, and he's won it just about every time, and he lost one the other 2 weeks ago, and he said he'd never lose one again. So he's won the last 2, but that's just how he is. Worked hard. We're hoping he can get on the podium. He's had some heartbreakers the last couple of years, but any of these top 4 guys could knock each other off, I feel like. So it's going to be an interesting weight class to watch.
Yeah, and I agree. And Coach Chavanelle, there's one of my favorites down there from your team, Braden Brown, and I consider him a bit of a dark horse. I still find him to be inconsistent, when he's wrestling, and I know that's probably a challenge for you as a coach. But kids, they mature at different levels, and I'd say that when that kid's a senior, I think you're going to see some pretty impressive stuff. But while we're in today, he's grown a bunch, and he's getting much better at wrestling. But there's still that part where he's got to pop. Any chance he pops this weekend?
I mean, it's definitely possible. So he wasn't even supposed to wrestle in this tournament. He was originally had a vacation scheduled right after. We worked on it with his family. I love their family. Heather Brown, his mom, is our team photographer. And obviously with the extra week in January, that kind of flubbed everything up. So our backup 157 kind of kept getting hurt over and over again. No fault of his own, just the way the season goes. And we kind of had me and Coach Mitch Como, kind of had a coming to wrestling moment with Heather, saying like, "Hey, like, is there any way we can just keep him for like one extra day?" And by all accounts, and thank God for her, she moved around some things so he could wrestle in this tournament. So, he doesn't have as many matches in those duels at D3. You look at his record; he's kind of wrestled everywhere else on Saturdays. So, I would definitely consider him the dark horse. But again, like that, Braden Brown has to come and wrestle. We could talk about it all we want. We've talked about it 1,000 times, but he's going to come and wrestle and go to his ability. But he's way more than capable of doing that.
Absolutely. And like Coach Austin mentioned, this is one of those brackets where, Grant's going to score some points there for Plymouth. You can be sure. But if you can get Braden underneath scoring some points as well, life is good. So, all right. So let's jump forward. We got 165 pounds. We got Philip Smith, as Coach Riddenger mentioned, Baby Ben's practice partner out of Pelham. He's the 1 seed. You got Connor Perry, White Mountains, your 2 seed. Paxton Roberts, Muscoma Valleys, your 3 seed. And then Joseph Martinez out of Raymond, 4. Cameron Brand out of Kearsarge, number 5. And so what we got here is pretty good stud here at the number 1 seed. So Coach Riddinger, talk to me about Philip Smith, because I've enjoyed the box scores all year with this young man.
Philip is trying to believe that he's only been wrestling 2 years. He came out last year as a junior, and being a senior this year, he's got a jiu-jitsu background, which certainly helped with his balance, his quickness, and that. But he is just such a coachable kid. I mean, you show him how to do something, or you tell him what you want him to do, and he does it. And it's just a no-brainer. And he doesn't know the word stop. I mean, this kid, he's that Energizer bunny that will just keep going and going and going. If I told him he had to wrestle back-to-back matches with 10-minute breather in between, he'd say, "Okay, let's do it." But like I said, him and that Atlantic strapping in the practice room, I mean, they are all over each other, and it's what adage, iron sharpens iron, and that's what they're doing with each other. He's funky, he scrambles, he's got good hips, so we're hoping that he can pull this one out. And he got a little nervous today when I told him he was the number 1 seed, and I said, "Listen, it's a number." I said, "You still got to go out and prove it all. So you got to go out and square up against each opponent and go out there and do the job that you're supposed to do." And he's going to be up to the task.
Well, I will say this. Yeah, all right, 1 seed might be a little nerve-wracking. We'll try being the 16 going against the 1. That's a whole nother bowl of wax. So tough problems to have. Coach Austin, what do you know about the 2 seed Connor Perry out of White Mountains?
So a funny little side note is I live in Jefferson in the summer, so I know some of these kids up there in the White Mountains. I actually work with Alden Willie's uncle, but Connor Perry is a tough kid. He's put in the work. They got this stretch of these 3 kids that work together up there, the 50, 57, and 65. If I remember correctly, I got to watch this match. It was in our gym. We had a tri-meet. So Pelham and White Mountains could meet in the middle instead of traveling, 2.5 hours each direction. And it was a close match. Phil pulled it out in the end. But he's a tough kid. He's strong. He's a good wrestler that works pretty hard. We got Dom Ciotti in this weight from Plymouth. He's a brother of Gianni Ciotti, who ended his career with a broken hand. His senior year was kind of a bummer, and Gianni's been helping us coach. He's doing a great job, and Dom broke into the lineup this year for the first time. we had an injury to Ben Valenti, who's a junior for us. He was a state champ last year as a sophomore. He's out. But Dom's filled in tremendously. Even though he's a junior, he's like a first-year varsity kid, and he's still making some first-year mistakes, and that puts him on the board as a non-seeded wrestler. But on any given day, I feel like he can scrap with any of these guys, and if he can just minimize those mistakes, he'll have a good tournament. So hopefully he can do something in that weight and get on the podium as a junior for us.
Well, I'm sure you're hoping that he could beat one Jacob Hammond from Bow, right?
Well, we always hope we can beat anybody from Bow. That's what Bow and Plymouth do. We it's a great rivalry, Billy, and Brock. Prior to that, we've kind of formed a friendly rivalry amongst the coaches, but the kids are always out there to battle and just beat the crap out of each other. And I'll save the colorful language that we hear on the Bow week, and I think Billy probably hears the same stuff coming our way. So it's been great, yeah. But we always want to beat those Bow guys.
I love it. Yeah. Hey, listen, this is what it's about. And I like the phrase, friendly rivalry. You guys are battle tested and you'll go after it in the gyms. But when it's over, you go have a beer together. I like that. All right. 175 pounds. Well, I think we can talk about who's getting number 2 here. I don't want to seem too out of place, but excuse me. Number 1 seed is Logan Allaire out of Campbell. Number 2 is David Jean out of Winnisquam. 3 is Nolan Galvin out of Plymouth. 4, Joel Libre out of Pelham. And 5, Brody Malinowski out of Kearsarge. And again, I may be speaking out of turn, but this is what I know. So Logan Allaire, he's a senior this year over at Campbell. Campbell is a team that does not have a room built for him. He's been the king of that room ever since he walked in it. And he had a shoulder injury this year that pushed him out for a while. And, I had spoken with his father, and there was some doubt as to whether or not he was going to come back or not. Was it worth it or any of that? And clearly, based on the 1 seed here, he's come back. And, he seems to be smiling and just kind of, hey, I'm going to enjoy it. And I think, sucks being injured, but it's probably, a silver lining that you just haven't been having to grind as hard and the damage through the season. And going to a bunch of duels where people run away from him because they don't want to wrestle him. That being said, he's definitely the rightful number 1. If there's anybody out here who can convince me that there's anybody that's going to topple him, aside from like you said, Coach Riddenger, your foot gets stuck, something. But I'd be hard pressed to find one of these kids from 2 down that even if you tripped him and put him on his back, I don't know that they can hold that gorilla down. But I'm open for convincing. So let's talk about 175. Coach Riddinger, what do you think?
Yeah, you got it right about Logan. I mean, he is such a great kid. He has bulked up an awful lot in the off season, and I remember down at New England's last year, he lost his first match, and he was really down and out. And I walked up to him. I was like, "Hey, it's one match. You can't go back on it now. You got to get back after it." And he did. He didn't finish on the podium. He ran into a couple buzzsaws down there, which happens. But yeah, he's definitely your clear number 1. The next 3, I mean, Gene wrestled up in our match. He wrestled Nichols up in our match. So Libre didn't see him then. Galvin Libre, I think that was a 2-point match, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was a tight one. It was yeah. I can't remember the exact outcome, but yeah.
Yeah.
There he
so he's Joel is another kid. This is only his 2nd year wrestling. He came out and wanted a challenge. He was tired of doing indoor track, so he came out and just started shining a lot. And it was him and Smith working together, and then he started working with Nichols, and just having all those kids in that weight group is a huge plus. I mean, is it going to get him past Allaire? I doubt it. It's going to take a miracle, just for Logan not to finish on top. So we're looking at second, third, and fourth right now. Which order are we going into the MOCs? So yeah, I mean, all those guys are tough, and look forward to seeing all the matches that they get squared up against.
Yeah. So, Coach Austin, you know, you got one on the bottom side, so you're safe away from Logan until at least the finals if you can get there. But I'm sure Nolan wouldn't mind upsetting the number one seed Logan Allaire.
Yeah, I mean, Logan came to the Plymouth tournament. He had 3 matches, and I think he was on the mat for 6 seconds. He gets out there and just gets it done. I think that injury early in the season kind of changed his mindset, where he's like, I just got to get this over with, and that's what he's been doing. Nolan, he's a senior for us now. Little side note: he's Randy Cleary's nephew. Uh, Decided to start wrestling as a freshman. Wanted to try it out because his uncle was the coach, and he's come a long way. Just like Coach Riddenger just said, he's got some good workout partners with, Valenti, Ciotti, Wenhart, Nosserman, who we'll talk about in a minute. It's just made him tougher, and he's a product of wrestling with those guys on a daily basis. That's made him a little better. I think 2, 3, and 4. Wrestle it 10 times, and we're going to have different outcome each time. But that's why we get on the mat and wrestle. David Jean's a tough kid. He wrestled a lot of matches up at 190, I think, this season, and came down late. But we've talked about Tom and what he's done with his kids and the weight classes he's put them in, and set himself up pretty good for this tournament.
Agreed. I think the bottom side of that bracket is going to be very fun to watch. And then, even again underneath, right? What happens underneath if somebody gets popped, right? You set up this. It's very interesting. You got Winnisquam, Plymouth, and Pelham are top 4 seeded in that one. So team wise, there could be some big impact here. But I think that if we're really being honest, 190 could have a heck of an impact in the sense that the top 4 here include 3 of the teams that are represented here, right? So you got Plymouth at number 1 with the sheriff. Emmett Nosserman's in town to take care of business one final time. Number 2 is Billy Nichols out of Pelham. 3, my boy Chase Flagg out of Bow. And then number 4, Cass Check out of Conval. 5 is Sam Weissman, another tough Winnisquam kid. And 6 is Ethan Brand out of Kearsarge. And geez, I don't even know where to go because this one's going to be, Emmett is really tough. Nichols really tough. Flagg really tough. And this is one of those things, right? One big mistake out of anybody, and this bracket gets flipped upside down. So, Coach Austin, you got the 1 seed here. I'll let you lead the dance.
Yeah, I think these guys are pretty familiar with Emmett. Emmett's got a different story than a lot of our kids. We started working with Emmett as a 5-year-old. He'd come in. His dad's a crazy wrestling guru from Ohio. Came in, brought his son up, and right out of the gate, Emmett was just natural. He could wrestle. He was big. He'd wrestle. As a 5-year-old, he'd wrestle 8 to 10-year-olds and just send them packing. But that being said, the dual meet, Billy Nichols, who's also tough as nails, wrestles a lot in the off season. He's always at Doughboy and comes out unfazed and slaps a cradle on Emmett in our home gym. Place is going kind of crazy, but silent crazy because they don't know what to think. Emmett fights it off and gets back in, and Billy slaps another cradle on him. And before we know it, it's like 11-0 or 11-1, whatever it was, Coach. And and then Emmett somehow fights it off and pulls that match out. And then wrestled Chase Flagg the other night, who's strong as an ox too, and pulled out a victory there in the end. I think it was a tech fall, but it was pretty tight. And you got to wrestle the matches to win it. And Billy Nichols is definitely up for the fight. And I think that semifinal match between Chase and Billy's going to be a great one. And hopefully, all goes our way, Emmett will be there in the finals to see what he can do against one of those guys.
I think that's spot on. And Coach Riddenger, obviously, right? Coach Austin reminds me of one of the great recaps I got to have this year, and thanks Todd for that. But when you have an entire Plymouth gym watching your Billy Nichols wrap up their star wrestler in a cradle, not once but twice, it's got to be pretty exciting on the inside, and I'm sure disappointment in that it didn't go your way, but hopeful for this type of showdown. In Chase Flag is not going to open the gate to get to the finals, but a chance to avenge that as the 2 seed. So what are you thinking for this Saturday?
Yeah, Billy, he came out of that one a little bit banged up, and I'm not going to make excuses for him, and he wouldn't make excuses for himself. But it happened. So just like we talked about, you can't go back and re-wrestle it right away. You're going to have to wait until hopefully the state finals where you're going to meet up again. None of that is guaranteed. Obviously, we all know that. So it's going to be a grind to get back to that point. Chase is going to give Billy all that he can if he gets down to that with the semis. And, there's a couple of other kids in there, that are going to be, they could throw the monkey into the wrench right there. So, he's gotten over it, and he's just on his own mission right now. He's really focused, and he's looking forward to Saturday.
Excellent. And certainly, last but not least, Chase Flag, Billy, senior this year, yes?
Junior.
Just a junior. Yeah, I was looking on track. I didn't see him listed. You do such good work in that track wrestling. So he's a junior this year. And as Coach Austin said, I mean, just strong as an ox. I mean, ridiculous kind of, that farm strength almost, except he doesn't work on a farm. So two really tough kids ahead of him. But if anybody could improve their seed and jump up, it's definitely a kid like Chase Flag. So, what's his mindset heading into the weekend?
Yeah, when he faced Billy in the first meet of the year, it was kind of like a last-second decision by the coaches and I. We tried to, because he was coming off football with a finger injury and an elbow injury, and kind of banged up. But he was practicing. And we're like, you know what? Let's just kind of shock the system a little bit. Maybe that'll make him less nervous. And all intents and purposes, he kind of crapped the bet against Billy. He recognized that, and went on a run pretty solidly throughout the year. Against some harder out of state and out of division kids. Thought that'd be good enough against Nossaman, and kind of reformed back into like that weaker set of mindset, I guess you can say. And I'm not saying anything we haven't talked about like publicly or behind closed doors. We've Chase is a very honest kid. He wants hard coaching. He thrives off hard coaching. He thrives off honesty. Chase looks at himself like how elephants look at themselves. They don't think of themselves as like big creatures. He, for some reason, thinks he's a small, delicate, like 120-pounder sometimes. And of course, we all see him. And we're all like, I wish I had 10% of that back when I competed. You know what I mean? Yeah. I know he hates hearing that because obviously, it gets old pretty quick, but that's just the reality of it when you're that big and that athletic and that size. So, I think since that Nosman match, I think something finally flipped. At least I hope it did. And, he's done a lot of good mind work on his own, and just kind of taking the coaching and, coming up kind of like what Coach Austin was saying earlier about his kids, always asking if they're working hard or what he can improve on. And, he started doing that back when he was a freshman and kind of divvied away from that just because he probably heard it enough. But now I think he's going back to his roots and, seeing that the hard work got him there. So I'm excited for that match, against Nichols if he gets there. Billy's super tough. Kids named Billy are just naturally tough. I don't know what to say. No, Nichols is an absolute stud. That cradle slap was heard around the entire state. We heard about it immediately when we got on the bus. And then I can't say enough good things about Nosman that hasn't been said already. So, I'm semi happy that they are, both seniors on their way out of here. But I am going to be excited to watch those two compete throughout the day come Saturday.
Yeah, this
And
190 is going to be a great. Go ahead, Todd.
I just want to add these three guys. I've been watching them wrestle. Win, lose, or draw, they get out there, they get after it, they get up, they shake hands, and there's no pouting, there's no headgear throwing. It's just they do it the right way. All three of these guys, they battle hard and they shake hands and they appreciate the sport. So these three guys, if people are watching and looking and listening, you can watch these guys and learn something, not only about wrestling.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Coach. Excellent. All right. Well, then
Real,
we'll
real, real quick,
along.
I do want to shout out Mr. Flag for getting me the coolest charcuterie board of all time.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Is that for like just cheese on steroids? What is that?
This is for tomahawk steaks, baby. I don't know what you're talking about.
I thought you were a cheese guy. I do want to mention one Sam Weissman, who is the 5th seed there. He's a bit of a sleeper, and in that team race, that 190 pounds underneath is going to be tough to get those points. And so is it top 3 or 4 that's going from top 4? So Sam Weissman of Winnisquam, you got to improve your seed by 1 to stick around, and one cash check out of Conval is surely going to be trying to stop that. So, all right, we land in the 215-pound division, where we have another bow wrestler in Jackson Hall as your 1 seed. You have Alex Dakota, the blue collar man out of John Stark. He's your 2 seed. The Viking from the north, Ethan Lewis, number 3 out of Muskoma Valley. Hussein Osarian, Plymouth, is your 4 seed. And Robert Prescott, Prospect Mountain, getting on the board with a seeded wrestler. Dig that. And also, George Tarwell coached Franklin has number 6 seed Cameron LeBrake. So good to see a few different school names pop up there. George Tyrell just getting going over there at Franklin, and I think give him a little time to build. He's young, he's full of piss and vinegar, and I think he can grow a good program over there. And so good to see them. But Coach Chavanelle, we got your boy Jackson Hall. He is a senior, and he will be heading out this year, and he's looking to head out with a championship. So he's step 1, got the 1 seed. That's a nice start. And some tough competition coming at him. Hussein Osarian, the 4 seed, no slouch, that 4 seed. 2 and 3, oh boy, that's just going to be mayhem. So, Coach Chavanelle, tell me how Mr. Hall is doing coming into this Saturday's Division III tournament and what you're expecting.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson's just one of those kids I'm going to be talking about, forever as long as I'm coaching. Does things the right way, says the right things, does it the right way. Like he's the ultimate team guy. And he's been like that since I met him when he was a sophomore. He's been banged up a lot throughout his career, and this is no exception. Whether it's he hurt his knee in the Salem Blue Devil finals against Caruso that knocked him out about a month, but he was still finding ways to work out and kind of keep pace with everybody else because he knows how deep 215 is, not just in D3 obviously, but around the state. So he was doing all the right stuff there. Got back as soon as he got his wind or his wind back under him. He came down with an illness that took him out for 2 to 3 weeks, and that was around the same time that he was going to have Descoto in a duel. So they haven't seen each other yet head to head. We haven't seen Lewis and Mascoma at all this year. We just saw Hussein, and Hussein's just as tough as ever, and he looks massive underneath the light. But I not to talk on my guy Jackson, but like he is the number 1 seed I think for a reason. He wrestles like a lighter weight, but just like in a brute style, kind of like a Sean Crean, I would say. Like if I compare him to him, which is ironic with Alex being the 2 seed. But he's just go, always push the pace, always trying to, drag him deep water and, see how far they can swim. So, Jackson is a force to be reckoned with, like I think across everywhere.
So Coach Austin, Hussein Ozarian, he's gonna if he wants a road to the finals, he's gonna have to go through Jackson Hole. And then on the other side of that, awaits either the Viking or the blue collar man. And so Hussein's had a pretty decent year, right? As Billy mentioned, 215, not just
Yeah.
in D3, but around the state. It's a tough weight class. So what are you expecting this weekend?
Yeah, it is a tough weight. Hussein, again a second year wrestler. He's a junior. Um, he's had a great year. These top three kids are big, strong, rugged kids. Alex from John Stark and Emmett. Um, Last year, I think they wrestled like 8 times, and he's just a scrappy kid. He looks exhausted 30 seconds in, but never slows down. I don't know how he does those two things at the same time, but just a great kid, good competitor. Um, in Dakota. But Hussein, yeah, I'm hoping he can open up his offense a little more in this tournament and get a little more aggressive and see what he can do. Jackson Hall's a tough draw there, the number one seed, if he can make it to the semis and get that matchup. But I wanted to give a shout out to George there over in Franklin. This Cam LeBrec, he wrestles tough, and I don't think he has another choice with George in the corner. You use piss and vinegar. I'd say like fear and fire. I don't know. Like if I was on the mat and George was yelling at me from the side the way he does, I would be wrestling hard. And that's what this kid does. And I just love that George is there and got that program back going. Back in the day, they were a pretty tough wrestling team over there in Franklin. They have very tough kids, and if George can get that team going, I think he could make some waves, in Division III, and I think it's a great thing when you see new programs popping up.
I love it. And, Coach Riddenger, I'm sure you love to hear that George is in the corner scaring the hell out of kids and making them wrestle tough. I know you subscribe to that approach every once in a while. But yeah, it's good to see a young guy like George coming in, and he's got young kids. He's a cop, and I hear people all the time how they don't have time to be a part of something, and George is literally living the American dream. So it's good to see him doing his thing. All right, so let's close it
Well,
out.
hey Ben,
Yeah, go ahead.
before you go up, Ben, I've got to take a little credit away from Bo right now, and a little bit away from John Stark, because when I was up at Sasson's a couple years ago, and I was working with Jackson and Chase and Alex up there, they kind of paired me in around these heavier guys, and I got to tell you, they were all three of their work ethics are unbelievable. I mean, they just like you said, Alex looks like he's gassed 30 seconds in, but don't rest on that one. He's going to be coming after you. So yeah, these guys, I mean, they're going to be tough. It's going to be a fun weight class to watch up there.
Yeah, I remember I was watching Dakota and Lewis wrestle, and it's literally like two elks running at each other. It's ridiculous. Um, there's something about Ethan Lewis. Truth be told, and no disrespect, he's not a great wrestler. Like his technique isn't that good, but man, he's just a killer, and he's so strong, and he's fast, and he's got good balance. And I walked over and I go, "You're a football player, right?" He goes, "I am." I said, "Middle linebacker." He's like, just a big old smile, and it just makes perfect sense because he's just a wrecking machine out there. So I can't wait to see how this division plays out. I think it's just going to be some really good fireworks. And if it were me setting up the tournament, I think I might make it that the 215 is the final match of the day. But I don't have any insight on that. What do I know? I'm just a dummy. All right.
Jackson would be so pissed every single time. Oh my god! Sorry, now I'm gonna go on a rant. Every single time I'm like, they're like, "What are we starting at?" It's 106, guys. Like it's whatever. Jackson's damn it. Like he's like he hates waiting. He hates it.
I like it. Well, those that wait, good things come sometimes. But all right, let's jump to heavyweight. And Coach Riddenger, you end the show with the number one seed and one Victor Zanoni from Pelham. Kevin Mullen out of Bow is your two seed. You got Caleb Thornton from Lebanon is your four seed. Lewis Soik out of Winnisquam is your four. And number five, Drake Toneman out of Plymouth. So, Coach Riddinger, if you would, tell us about one senior Victor Zanoni, yes?
Sophomore.
Is it his sister's a senior?
His sister's a senior.
All right, so you got Victor for one more year. So as a junior, he's the one seed heading in. Two more, excuse me. Sheesh, my
Two
math's
more.
good tonight. Two more, and
Sophomore,
he's the
junior,
one seed.
senior.
Check, yeah, I got to work on that, Coach. So Victor, one seed. I watched him as a youth. You could tell he was going to be doing some good stuff, and here he is doing it.
Yeah, he's one of those guys I like to get a little bit of one-on-one time with him. He started to grow into his body a little bit. Last year I think he was like 235, and now he's up around 260. He'd been hitting the gym in the off season, and playing football. He came back into the wrestling room, and I think one of the best things for him is we do a lot of cross-border wrestling in Massachusetts. So he sees a lot of different heavyweights down there, all shapes and sizes, and a couple of them have had his number, and he's done his own bit of damage down there with those guys. And, he's got another freshman in the room that's, he can roll around with, and he kind of beats up on him a little bit, but, they just keep going. And, some of the things that we've been working with Victor on, he takes it to heart. When we were over at Hollis, he got down, he made a shot on a kid, and he stayed on his knees. And I have another individual that likes to think he can finish his takedowns from his knees, and doesn't work. We all know that doesn't work. So he came off, and I was like, that's why you lost right there. I said, you stayed on your knees, you got cut and turned over, and that was the end of it. So, that's something that you got to work on. And so far this week, he's been physical. He's been going after things. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do, just so long as he keeps his head on straight and, wrestles the way that he can.
Excellent. Well, there'll be one Kevin Mullen on the other side of the bracket looking to do the upset dance. And so, Coach Chavanelle, you're up.
Yeah, so Kevin's a freshman this year. He came from our Brawlers program. He's been wrestling there since we started it about 4 years ago. Great kid, great family. His dad helps out with the Brawlers. I can't say enough good things about the Mullen family in general. Getting to Kevin, I guess you can say story getting to this spot was unforeseen. We had no plans to kind of put him at heavyweight this year. He's going to be behind Jackson, which, it's not a bad person to be behind and kind of learn a little bit. Our original heavyweights kind of didn't work out one reason or another. We talked to Kevin about going up, and, he doesn't say no to anything that's going to be good for the team. And he's kind of been on a roll. He hasn't seen Zidoni yet, but he hasn't, or the Lebanon kid yet, but, or the Winnisquam kid, but everybody else that he's seen D3 wise, like he hasn't lost to yet. He has some good wins out of state and out of division as well. So, I was happy to see he got the 2 seed there. I wasn't really expecting it, but I'm pretty proud of the progress that he's made. And I got to give a big shout out to 2 coaches, Devin Flagg, Chase's cousin, and then former Franklin wrestler Patch Kaplan. We got him in the room coming in a couple times a week. And Patch was a 2-time state champ over at Franklin. So, and he kind of wrestles like a lighter weight. So, it works well with Kevin's style as well. So, as a head coach, you guys know you don't get to see or spar with everybody like you want to. But my coaches underneath have been the absolute best this year. So, I don't think Kevin's in the spot without those 2 guys.
Yeah, nobody gets here without a little help, right? And so, Coach Austin, if you would close us out. You got Drake Tonahan, dark horse down there at number 5. Overall thoughts on 285?
Yeah, I think after Zanoni, it's kind of wide open. Mullen's a light heavyweight, 215 at times. Drake Tottenham and Soik are also in that same boat. They're a little bit lighter. They're not those big 260 pounders, but certainly Drake's put a ton of time in the weight room. He last year we kind of asked him to go up to heavyweight. He was weighing about 210. He couldn't beat Hussein, and no problem. He went up and he embraced that role. He's been our heavyweight ever since. He's got a lot of good wins, and we're hoping, as a senior, we can get him on the podium, and he finishes strong for us and scores us some team points here in this weight.
Love it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, 14 weight classes down. Nothing left to do but actually make it to Saturday. So, before we jump out, obviously there's a team racing involved here. I'll speak to that. I wouldn't ever put you guys on it. You guys are going to be competing against each other. And so I will take the lead on this one. Here's what I know. It's going to be a good one. Yeah, the way that I see it, there's a minimum of 4 teams involved in the race here. You got Bow, you got Plymouth, you got Pelham, you got Winnisquam. Based on what I'm seeing in the seating and things like that, right? Things can go sideways, but that's a heck of a D3 race right there between those 4 teams. Not just because you guys are here, but they're 4 very well coached programs, and just. I think this weekend is really going to shake out to be an interesting weekend for you guys. I'm sad I'm not going to be there. And even though I'm there, I can't see everything. That's why I prefer to sit out the postseason and just do regular season, but that doesn't seem to work. I just want to say that I think it's been an amazing year in D3. I spend a lot of time going to the dual meets. I do some tournaments and stuff, and all the kids are very well coached. They're very respectful, and if they're not, they're taken care of very quickly and taught to be respectful. And I think that's one of the most important things here. And so I just want to give you guys a shout out for, what you guys do. And I know it seems only for a few months out of the year, but it's a year-long commitment, whether it's just some thoughts while you're sitting out on a boat having a beer, Coach Austin, or playing some disc coach, Chavanelle, or making sure the wife is happy, Coach Riddenger. We all got things to do, but we're thinking about wrestling. There's things coming in. So thank you for your commitment to the youth of our communities, wherever you're at. And good luck to you guys this weekend. I look forward to seeing you guys at the MOC. And as always, we'll see you on the mats.